Welcome, everyone. This is part 5 of our series, Crisis Selling During a Black Swan, COVID-19. Our theme today is the truth about selling and why salespeople are heroes. And as always, we'll try to bring you an innovative idea or two. We'll just give folks another moment or two to all check in, and then we'll start. Now, I would like to mention, as folks are logging in, that this is the 5th session in this series. The first one was aligned with the path of growth. The second was remote selling preparation. The third was catalyzing sales innovation in do or die. And the fourth was ensuring the second sales call with the inescapable idea. If you have interest in seeing the rebroadcast of any of these, send me a note, and I will be glad to send you a link for that. I want to just start with a very practical technique under the subject of preparation. I want to make sure everybody knows about scrap. So let's go for a moment to LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn profile, and you'll notice there's a button up here. It's the Scrap Chrome extension. And so you get it by going to the Chrome extension website, and you add this in as a button. And you'll notice when I click on it, it gives me my email address back. So when the webinar is over, if you're not sure how to go to the Google's store and get this URL, get this login, this add-on, this button, send me an email and I'll be glad to get that to you. So thanks again for joining us. We always try to give everybody a practical tip or two to make their selling more effective. So why do we set aside time to improve? We follow the theme in E-Myth that most of the time we're working in the business, and when we come together on a day like today, we're working on the business. It's a time to be thoughtful, which really ties in today's theme. The underlying theme today is that selling is a thinking profession. Now, if you're ready for a quiet time webinar, if that's what you came here for today, forget it. This is going to be wild. They're going to be fireworks. My advice to you is fasten your mental seatbelt. Come what may, we'll try in the end to bring you to a safe landing. Have some fun here. You know, COVID-19 has been our theme. Selling during COVID-19 has been our theme since the beginning, and it keeps changing. This is a map of states that have opened, and there may be some selling opportunities. You want to keep yourself abreast of this. The problem is we're here up in the Northeast in the New York metro area where I'm broadcasting from, and we're still closed. So what do you do in this scenario is a major theme for us today. Now, heroic selling prepares you for the slingshot. There's a double slingshot recovery that we face right now. So the first is, as we start to open up, there's going to be business, right? So that's the market rebound. But in addition to that, there's going to be underserved markets. Why? Because unfortunately, some people aren't coming back. Some people aren't coming back, and you're going to have a 5 to 30% growth in market if you're with a strong company that could weather this. So be alert to this, keep this in mind, look for opportunities. Another thing we've emphasized throughout is how do you become a trusted advisor, which could seem almost impossible at this time. Now, what we offer here is a visual on how hard it can be to open up a new account. If the competitor is a trusted advisor, and that's us, we're bidding on a single transaction, it's like we're trying to kick the soccer ball upfield and they're rolling it downfield. And the techniques we've been offering in this series are ways to level the playing field and help us become a trusted advisor even before experience. So what is this truth about selling that is the major theme for today? The theme is that salespeople are heroes. Now, there's an alternative, negative, self-defeating perspective out there that selling is a slimy profession. It's epitomized in books like Death of a Salesman, where the anti-hero, Willie Loman, actually a play, Willie Loman is presented to us as a slimy loser. He commits suicide in the end. And very often, people we meet associate selling with this kind of an image. Whether or not they've seen the play, read the play, they see salespeople as slimy. What's even worse and sad is many salespeople have internalized this idea in their own minds, and they won't do the obvious things that are needed for selling. Now, here's an alternative view that I offer you: the salesperson as a hero, right? And as our source material, we offer Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces. Campbell was an anthropologist who studied hero myths in hundreds of cultures over thousands of years. And the essential contribution of this book was to look at what is the path of the hero's quest. So join me in thinking about a myth you might have heard when you were young. You've got a village, and there's a dragon who's moved into the vicinity, and the dragon's killing people and eating cattle, and eventually the mayor, the king, the queen, the vizier, the sultan, they draw all the people together in the town square and say, if there's one person who will go forward and kill this dragon and cut off the head and bring it back, they're going to get a reward, and the reward's going to be half of my kingdom, and you can marry my son or daughter if you want to get married. And most people, like, their heads are downcast, but one person says, I'll go. And they go out and they have an incredible adventures, and eventually they face the dragon, and they kill the dragon and cut off the head and bring it back, and they get their reward. And the central question in this book, which impacts us as salespeople, is at what point of the story do you become a hero? And many people say, well, when you kill the dragon or when you come back and you're recognized. But the idea in myths is that you become a hero when you volunteer and you go forward and you face uncertainty. And that's what makes salespeople heroes, because we do this every day. Now, we don't face the dragons of myths. We face dragons of the mind. And because we face these dragons of the mind, that's what makes us heroes, and it's also what makes this a highly intellectual process. So selling is a thinking profession. We overcome ignorance, bias, complacency, laziness, and perhaps most important of all, the closed mindset. Heroic salespeople open the closed mind. We take prospects on a journey on the change curve. Now, the material you're about to see is drawn from a book called On Death and Dying. When we first make contact with a prospect, they tell us they're satisfied. I'm good. By the way, we're going to come back to I'm good later in this webinar. And then maybe they say, I don't need what you have. And if we show them evidence, they start getting a little annoyed because we're putting them in harm's way. And we're encountering the closed mindset because they don't know what they don't know. And we have to open the closed mind. This is the core of selling right here, going from resistance, the closed mindset, to the open learning mindset. Because if we can get them to the open mindset, we can get them to hope, we can get them to commitment. And this is the core of selling, going from resistance, the closed mindset, to the open mindset. Now, throughout these series, we've had this Power of the Wisdom in the Room series. How do you convince a prospect to take a journey on the change curve when you're facing a closed mind? What do? I'd like you to take 30 seconds, take a pencil and paper, and just jot down, here's what I do that helps open the closed mind. And I offer it as a wisdom in the room exercise because when you return to your company, can you imagine if all the salespeople and the executives in the firm wrote down, here's how you start a prospect on this path, on this journey of change from closed mindset to open mindset. So write down one sentence now. What's the best thing you do? And we're going to have one or two more exercises like this. And the real payoff to this program is taking the exercises back to your firm and doing the exercises. Now, to review material that we've offered before, one key to putting prospects on the change curve is showing them they're on a false summit, right? The false summit. So they're on this summit over here, they're looking down, and what we help them do is we help them look up. And this is the essence of persuasion, is helping a prospect look up, bringing them to a higher peak of well-being. And this is how we earn the right to access, and this is how we get to moral certainty. Now, a core challenge that prevents people from doing this is the difference between social values and business values. Now, a social seller wants people to like them, and a business seller wants to earn the right to profitable business. As a metaphor for social selling, I offer you Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. As a metaphor for business selling, I offer you this Harvard Business Review article from March 2010, In a Downturn, Provoke Your Customers. Now, it isn't either or. It's not you're either a social seller or a business seller. The problem is too many salespeople are just worried about people liking them. And the social selling becomes so predominant and the business selling becomes so minor that we never close sales. Or we bring in unprofitable business. Why? Because how do you make a buyer happy? You cut your price. Now, this is a big red flag if you're a social seller, right? It's a big red flag. And what did we learn in Built to Last? We learned it's not an and, it's an or. So it's an and, not an or. So it's not you're a social seller or a business seller, you're an and. You do social selling and business selling. Now, very often when we reach out, a prospect could be hostile, they could ignore you. And what we need to do is we need to pierce the veneer of I'm good. So prospects will often tell you, I'm good. And actually they're drowning and we need to save them. And it's part of what makes us heroes. So you finally connect with a prospect, they tell you I'm busy, the clock is running. But the prospect doesn't know what he doesn't know, right? He doesn't know what he doesn't know. So we persist. And what do? We move mountains for our prospects and our clients. And that's ultimately why they're going to bring us in, try us, and give us an opportunity. Because when they finally know, right, and this is our job, it's like a drama. There's a business development drama. You know, we have to go through this all the time, these steps of resistance and overcoming, right? Opening the closed mindset, that's our job. What does it take to succeed? Strong self-belief, belief in ourselves, belief in our company. And we have to care about the prospect because they're in a suboptimal position. So we're on a crusade, at least a three-way crusade. First for ourselves, then for our company. Maybe it's a four-way crusade. Why? Because think of all the team members in our company who would have nothing without salespeople doing their jobs. And finally, the last crusade is we're on a crusade for our client who's often resisting us, such irony. And then they become our best bud or best gal after we have experience together. I want to caution you about the burden of proof challenge here. The burden of proof is on the person who asserts something. So when we make a strong statement to a prospect, we need to prove it so, or we won't sway the skeptic. So let's take a moment here for another power of the wisdom in the room moment. How do you meet the burden of proof challenge in business development? And I recommend you take out a pencil and paper, write down one thing you do, and what a great exercise this could be with your company, with the team members in your company, right? Great exercise. So just as a refresher, we're hopeful you have a WOW toolbox. What are things that are in your WOW toolbox? Powerful, hard-hitting messaging. And we talked about doing an exercise to develop it. Turned over to graphics people so you have powerful, iconic metaphors like this smoke jumping for an architectural firm. Powerful testimonials, examples of your work, great diagnostic questions. And I think we'll get to some of them in the next session. And risk reduction strategy. These are all in your WOW toolbox. Now, I just read an article in the Harvard Business Review that distinguished between the KPI and the CPI. Most of us are familiar with KPI, key performance indicators. The CPI is the consumer performance indicator. So when you're doing the burden of proof argument, you're doing it hopefully as the prospect measures things with CPIs. For instance, here's an architect's report from one of my clients. Within 45 minutes of a discussion with a building owner, we had a CAD released to the potential tenant. So turnaround time was really important, and that was the CPI here. And think about what are the CPIs, the consumer performance indicators that are important in your business. Oops. Cautionary note: we know we're heroes, but we also have to be team players. Every now and then I run into a salesperson who thinks he or she is better than everybody else and doesn't have gratitude and doesn't realize that they're depending on a team that's moving them forward. In this regard, I would refer you to a Good to Great. Same author is involved as Built to Last, who talks about level 5 leadership. It's really important that we're level 5 leaders, which includes being team players and being humble. So showing gratitude, focus on the team, very important. And by the way, it's a great risk reduction strategy, because when a salesperson comes in and says it's all me, 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 it's not credible to a prospect, because prospects know it takes a team. So showing gratitude, very important in our personality and our way of doing business. All right, so when do you need bold behavior improve? When is a salesperson particularly brave? It's when the prospect says, I'm good, when they have the closed mindset. This probably shuts down 80% of your opportunity, is when you can't overcome the I'm good objection. So let's do another power of the wisdom in the room. How do you move beyond I'm good? Take a moment and write down on your piece of paper, how do you respond to I'm good? And again, make this a project with the whole team and share the wisdom of the room, which means all the people on your team share that wisdom. Now, we like to do this with a timer, because when the prospect's on the phone, and particularly in these days of COVID-19, if you're selling, you're on the phone, you're lucky if you have 20 seconds. So what can you say in 20 seconds that would make a difference? 20 seconds is a long time, but it goes by pretty quickly. So you really need to have the response to I'm good written down on your desk, ready to go. All right, let's look at some possibilities. When the prospect says I'm good, we could say, gee, you're just good, not fantastic. Do you know that all of my clients require fantastics? Are you the least bit curious what fantastic looks like? So that could be one response, but be prepared to back it up with a breakthrough idea. Here's another one. I'm surprised to hear you say that. I didn't know any of my competition did, and now you fill in the blank. And finally, we can typically revolutionize our customer's business. I'm calling to set up an appointment to see if I can do the same for you. Of all these things, one thing I really want to bring to your attention is I'm surprised to hear you say that. I'm giving you permission to use that when you sell. A quick review of the inescapable idea, something we covered in the last session. The hot button is the problem the prospect has. If we treat it with bold vision, proving, and get prospect validation, I'm going to talk about validation in the next session. That becomes client urgency. Client urgency, treated with your proven defendable position, becomes an inescapable idea. So just a couple of words on hot button. It comes from your experience. If the prospect doesn't want to talk, if you get into a conversation and say, gee, tell me what are your biggest challenges? The prospect may just say, I don't have any challenges. I just want to know what's out there. So they're not playing nicely in the sandbox. Here are some common challenges that customers face with their incumbent suppliers. They're not responsive. So what's our CPI, our customer or performance index? There are quality problems. They're not innovative enough. They're not customer focused. So if I was talking to a prospect, wasn't giving me anything, I would say, okay, let me tell you what our clients typically bring us in? Why do they bring us in? Not responsive enough, quality problems, innovation issues, not customer focus. Say, do you have any of those issues? That usually gets us the wow and gets us into a conversation. So what are some takeaways from today? Salespeople are heroes. Why? Because they open the closed mindset. The essential heroic act is opening the closed mindset. Selling is a thinking person's profession. It usually takes bold behavior to open the closed mind. And a critical problem we have to overcome is the I'm good scenario. And a great way to handle it is to get into the I'm surprised to hear you say that. And it's important to drill on the well, I'm good objection because it probably shuts down 80% of business. Well, we all know Rome wasn't built in a day, so we've almost come to the end of today's webinar. If you have any questions, you could write to me at this email address. If you want a link to one of the earlier webinars, if you missed them, if you're new to this program, send me an email. And if you want even a compendium of the exercises, I'll be glad to send that to you. Our next webinar is June 3rd at 11 a.m. And the subject is turning interest into urgency. Again, any questions, please write to me at andy@urgencybasedselling.net. Thanks for joining us today. And that brings us to the end of our webinar. Bye, everybody.